Sometimes I like to talk about things that I am passionate about that other people are knowledgeable about, and today is one of those things. I really like the idea of artificial races in tabletop game. And last week we were talking with Mike about Exalted, and Exalted has such a race, so we are back talking about Exalted.
Hello, how's it going, everyone? Pleasure to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome, heroes and villains, to fjookenterprises YouTube channel. Take a moment, relax, stop your bickering, and just enjoy the show. Stu, but there's a few things I would like to bring up from last week's episode that one got cut, which is your advice that you gave to play what you like. Just because I like playing creative people doesn't mean other people have to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you brought up a point that basically homebrewing rules and making the game your own is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it depends upon the group, the DM if they're comfortable with it, the players if they want it, and how it just gels, right? If you have to make a custom rule, go ahead. If you don't, if you just want to stay vanilla, that's perfectly fine. It all depends upon what you want for your group, the story you want to tell, and how you want to go about it. So there's nothing wrong with making the game your own.
In case someone missed last week's episode, or they're finding this episode in the future, what is the Exalted RPG?
Certainly. Exalted is a Bronze Age themed tabletop role playing system that is currently in its third edition. In it, the players take on the roles of the Exalted, various demigods that have been uplifted from normal mortals to strike out and make a name for themselves. They can be either heroes who are out to save the realm and correct all the evils, or they're, villains who are seeking to make an empire for themselves, or perhaps plunge the world into more darkness and finally end it. It's your story and how you want to make it. It has a lot of heavily anime influences and other wushu uh, Chinese martial arts movies. It's a fantastic role playing system if you want something that can be high energy and cinematic, but has a lot of crunch in its dice system. So I love it. I fully recommend it. I think it's a great time.
From my understanding and research, the created race, the alchemical exalted, do not actually come from creation, but somewhere else. Is that accurate?
Yes and no. There are actually a few other created races in Exalted. And in fact, technically, you could say that all the races are created because all the races were created by the primordials back in the prehistoric times. But in this instance, if we're going with artificial living organisms such as the alchemicals, then the idea, the seed of them was founded in creation by Autothon, the creator, one of the traitor primordials that assist the exalted in the usurpation. Uh, Autothon is your classic forge god. He was deemed ugly by the other primordials, useless except to create like a few little neat things, and that's about it. He didn't have a lot of power to himself. He wasn't able to stand up to his much larger and more powerful brethren who had more souls. That when you don't have material wealth, how do you compare status? Well, of course, the primordials did that by comparing the amount of souls that they had. Primordials can have multiple souls inside of them, with their heart soul, their fetish, being the most important one and generally the strongest one. Not always the case, but generally it is. Autocathon doesn't have a lot. I think he has like 6. That's about it. Where others had hundreds, right? So he was pretty low on the totem pole. So, anyways, after getting abused and mistreated by his primordial brethrens. When the gods, the servants of the primordials, came over to him and said, "Hey, we want to get rid of the system. We want to put us in charge, and we need your help to do that." Agathon went, "Yeah, sure. I'm tired of getting shoved in my celestial locker and given swirlies in the universal toilet there. It's not fun. I'm a big robot guy. I don't like it. Messes with my gears. Let's do it." And so he created the process of exaltation, where he would take a shard of divinity from the god and then infuse it with divine sorcery to implant it into a human soul, and thus the humans could become exalted and a demigod essentially. So then the war happened, the usurpation. Basically, heaven fell. The primordials were either killed they suffered fetish death so many times that they encased themselves in scabrous coffins and became the Neverborn. And when they finally died, they created the underworld. Or those that could not be defeated in combat or any other way, they surrendered. They were sealed inside the primordial leader, Malfian, and he became Hell essentially. That his name became synonymous with Hell, and so Agathon saw this and like, well, what's next? There's only myself and Gaia left, and they need Gaia because without Gaia, they have no creation. What am I? I'm a mechanic whose usefulness is now gone, right? So he became incredibly paranoid that the Exalted were going to turn on him. There was also the problem of the Great Curse. Agathon knew of the Great Curse. He could sense it in them. He wasn't quite sure exactly how it all worked, but he knew that if he were to try to warn them or tamper with it in any way, they would probably turn on him and shove him into Malfian or turn him into a Malpheus or turn him into a Neverborn. He didn't want that. So in an act of self-preservation and paranoia, he opened basically a Stargate and took all of his human followers with him and left. He went, I'm done with this. But the problem is that when he left, there was nothing on the other side. There was literally just a blank spot. So fearing for the well-being of his human followers, because Agathon really loved humans. He thought they were amazing. They were inventive. They were creative. They wanted to build stuff with their hands. These little guys are great. But turns out they need food, air, and water to survive. Well, how do you get something to survive when there's nothing? So he basically turned himself into Cybertron and created a living metal world that was fully capable of supporting human life. And so he basically reconfigured himself and his souls to be maintainers of this new world that these humans were going to populate and live in. So the humans were then woken up by the fetish souls and the council that now rules Agathon for the godly purposes. And they basically were said to, go forth, multiply, maintain this world. This is my gift to you for being, my followers, and take care of me. Otherwise, we're all going to die. But Agathon also knew that in a world powered by primordial energy, powered by his own life essence, that things were going to go awry. And he also knew that given the fact that the usurpation happened, there probably were going to be some problems coming up, right? People hate a power vacuum, and there was going to be a power vacuum, and he didn't want it to be the gods versus the humans again, right? Because, well, he'd probably win, and he loves his mortals. So in an effort to protect them from his own primordial energies and allow kind of like a vent for some of that frustration that the humans might have had, he created the alchemicals. These were so everyone in Agathon has a soul shard embedded in their forehead or someplace else on their body, and this represents one of the 5 magical materials: orichalcum, star metal, quicksilver, soul steel, and jade. And these 5 magical materials, a sliver of which is implanted in your skull at the moment of birth, and that kind of defines your caste in the Agathon society. Agathon society is highly regimented. not to say that you, like a jade worker, can't be a mighty warrior. It does happen, but you're kind of set on your path. So eventually, people die, and their shards are then collected and they're formed into the alchemical. The alchemical is a kind of like a combination of all these individual souls and experiences, and thus you are newly remade into one individual powerful being that is set out to lead the humans and protect Odakathon from potential invaders. You never know, and internal threats as well. To the people and the city states that populate Odakathon, they are heroes. They're champions. They're basically kind of like sports stars, right? They're the everybody knows them. There's betting pools on them if there's a tournament that happens to see which city state has the best alchemicals, right? They're beloved or reviled. It's great, and you can make it anything you want, right? Like if you want it to be like the anime Tiger and Bunny, where all the alchemicals have like points assigned to them based upon their heroic deeds or villainous acts, you can do that. If you just want it to be more like the city states are in a cold war with each other, trying to defend against their limited resources, and the alchemicals are how they decide who gets what resource node. You can 100% do that too. That's the beauty of Autocathon and the alchemicals and how it's all set up. There's enough definition in there that you can pull from it and then make it what you want.
Something I remember from reading the Splat books is there's always 5 casts, but there used to be 6 in all the Exalted. Is that accurate?
I don't know. There's only ever 5 casts. Yeah, there's only ever 5 casts. Orichalcum, Moonsilver. That's what it was, not Quicksilver. Star Metal, Jade, Soulsteel, and Adamant. Oh no, there is 6. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Adamant cast. Ah, yes, the Adamant cast. I forgot about those guys. They're cool. They're the Seeker cast. Hey, that's why I didn't remember them.
So is it just the alchemical that have a secret cast?
Yes, yeah, they're the only ones. The Adamant casts are Autocathon's answer to how do you watch the Watchmen? Who watches the Watchmen, essentially, right? The Adamant police the other alchemical exalted from becoming too powerful or too corrupt, or upsetting the status quo too much, or risking damage to Autocathon itself. So they are masters of disguise and infiltrators who will, they might be a well-known Soulsteel spy, right? Or a daring Orichalcum adventurer. And secretly, they're just infiltrating the city-state and making sure that, all the T's are crossed and the I's dotted, and that nobody's trying to pour too much food for themselves. That recycled matter, matters. It's got to feed a bunch of people. So,
is Autocathon the only place outside of creation where humans exist?
Yes, in this case, it is. You could kind of say that Autocathon, in and of itself, is a separate dimension, right? Kind of, if going the whole multiverse of madness thing, it's a split, right? If you could, one of the ways I heard the cosmology of Exalted explained was that you had the heavens over top, and then you had creation, which is flat, by the way. and then underneath that you had 2 axes. You had Malthus, which is hell, and then the underworld, which is a gothic, creepy recreation of creation over top of that. And that's if you were to view Exalted as on top to bottom there. If you flip creation, because once again it is flat, you would see that there's another disc on the side, and that is Autothon. Basically just stapled to the side of creation, not too far, not too close, but just there, anchoring himself. and there's a reason for that. Onyxthon was worried. He's a smart guy, right? He's a crafter. He got a bunch of numbers in his head going all the time, but he knew that there might be a problem with him. Onyxthon was always sickly. Once again, going into that forge god mythos of Hephaestus, right? Hephaestus, the other gods hated him. He was ugly. He was useful, but being all the other Greek gods, they were beautiful, divine perfection, right? And Festus was an ugly little troll they needed to use every once in a while to them. And so that's Onyxthon has that curse as well, where he's sickly and his systems would fail every once in a while. But thanks to the ambient magical energy of creation, he could repair himself, right? He could get spare parts. He could manufacture failing organs for himself, or if he needed magical nature to repair one of his souls, he could do that, right? In Onyxthon, he's by himself. There's not a lot of extra ambient energy to go around. The only thing that gives off energy are the humans, right? But they consume more than they give off. So that's what drives what's known as the Grasshopper War. The Grasshopper War is an event that can take place where the alchemicals realize that Onyxthon is dying, and there's not a whole lot they can do in their own reality. So they gather a host together of other like-minded alchemicals and mortal followers, form an army, reopen that hidden Stargate, punch a hole into creation, and just start ravaging like a hungry horde of locusts. Dirt, grass, wood, stone, valuable materials, magical materials, people, animals, anything. It all gets shipped back. And basically what they're trying to do is reinvigorate Agathon, because this is their love for their primordial god, right? It's not, most of them aren't doing it out of malice for creation or as a chance to strike back. This is a compassionate war to heal their beloved benefactor. So make of that as you will.
It sounds like if you're going to play with alchemicals, you need to basically play a game based on Autothon. You can't have a game based in creation unless it's a Grasshopper War. Is that an incorrect assumption?
I would say so. Creation's a wild place, right? You could be a prototype of alchemical that was accidentally left behind after the Exodus. You could be a scout that's taking a look at creation's viability. You just random teleportation accident, and your alchemicals teleported to a different dimension. It's however you want, right? You want to go pure Pulp Fiction, you can do that. You want to do sci-fi stuff, you can do that. There's always a way to get a Exalted type into your game. Vice versa, right? Like if you wanted to play an infertile deceiver and go into Autothon and unite all the mortals and alchemicals against the gods and finally plunge a dagger into that traitor's heart and kill him. Yeah, do it, right? How do you get there? Talk to your storyteller. But you shouldn't let the lore get in the way of your fun.
Why do alchemicals not have the Great Curse?
Simply being is that they didn't exist when the Great Curse was laid upon them. The Great Curse was only laid upon the Exalted host after they had banished the last primordial into Malpheus, and the gates were sealed. It was the final curse, one of the many final curses laid upon them. You could say like the Great Curse is this amalgamation of all these death curses and hate curses as the gate was sealed and Malpheus was banished to himself. Weird when you think about that. And thus all that hatred, all that negative energy, it permeated and tainted the Exalted Shard in each of the Exalted hosts at the time. Because Dragon-Blooded don't have actual shards in them. They're their powers through blood, it's far less. But that genetic memory is still there. Autothonians, sorry, alchemicals, they didn't at the time. They weren't activated. They didn't exist. They had no. They were just mortals, right? And primordials, they still considered mortals bugs, insects to be stepped on, ants to be ignored. So the Great Curse wasn't applied to them. As such, when Autothon took his mortal followers, made Alchithonia, and he created the alchemicals to watch over and protect his people, they're amalgamations of hundreds of thousands of human souls to build this one individual. So because they stem from mortals, they don't have that great curse. That being said, they still have the sickness of Autothon, and that can drive them to extremes of wanting to protect or destroy anything that they deem a threat to their world. Right. So it's still a game of pulp fiction of mighty heroes, striving against the darkness and resisting their dark urges that can sometimes manifest. Yes, maybe you're not as crazy as the rest of the Exalted host.
Will Autothon ever return to creation?
That depends upon the storyteller themselves. For my own Exalted game, I definitely do like the idea of the Grasshopper War. I think it's a bit limited in scope in that it was designed as a scenario, but it just as a threat for players to fight against, right? I think it could have been a bit more nuanced in how it approached things. I think it could have been maybe as a harbinger of the end times that were coming to Exalted when the Ebon Dragon set about his plan to take back heaven, destroy the Exalted, kill all the gods, and laugh as the world was plunged into darkness. But like it all depends upon you as the storyteller. If you want Autothon to come in, do it. Cybertron, yeah. So if you want Cybertron to appear suddenly in your creation skies as this wave of people and strange exalted types make landings and start building fortifications for themselves, absolutely. If you want, peaceful ambassadors to come through different gates scattered across creation and make diplomatic envoys to say, hey, we want to trade. We have technology. You have resources. Let's make a deal. 100% do that, right? If you want your players to actually go to Autochthon's primary chamber and talk to the glitchy fetish souls that he has and learn from them, and or how perhaps they can fix creation. Maybe the way that you decide to fix Autochthon is to merge Gaia and Autochthon together so that you can have this cyber organic ending like the Beast Wars cartoon did. One of the beauties of alchemicals is that they're highly adaptable in their powers and what they do. Like there's obviously the straight, like, you're really good at fighting charms and all that, but some of them actually let you go to a giant size, and then you can pump out little containers that have miniature versions of you. They're weird, man. They're awesome. I love them. They're so customizable and what they do. Though in terms of power level, the solar will always be a little stronger than the best solar will always be a little stronger than the best alchemical, and that's just due to the way they're made up, right? Because the solars are the strongest. Solars, abyssals, and infernals are always going to be the strongest because they come from the sun, the power that shines upon creation and fuels everything. And that's fine. In terms of like raw dice pools, solars are going to have it better. So just as a little power dynamic there for you.
Have the Alchemical Exalted made its way into 3rd edition?
As of this point, I don't believe so. I think they're still on the docket. Yeah, they haven't made it yet, sadly. But hopefully. I mean, I would love it. I would love to run a alchemical game. Be an alchemical if somebody else wanted to take over storyteller duties. I think they're great. And hopefully we'll see them soon.
I I know from talking with you. I know from talking with you and Leaf that doing a game with, for example, vampires, werewolves, and changeling, or solar, lunar, and alchemical is something you shouldn't do right off the bat. You should be more experienced. But once you are more experienced, would the whole table have to agree to be alchemical in order to run a chemical game, or can just one person be alchemical?
Absolutely, one person can just be an alchemical. Like if, as I mentioned before, one of the charms is that you can actually literally grow your body. So if you want your alchemical to be a mobile base option for the rest of your circle, do it. That's awesome. That's just one option you could be, right? Um, yeah, I just think personally that your first game, no matter how it ends, you should all be a single splat, like all solars, all lunars, blah 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 blah. But then after that, after you get that first hit, then start experimenting with mixed circles. But just know that each of those exalted types have different requirements that they need, right? And the Great Curse affects them in different ways. You have to be cognizant of that and all of the social aspects that can come with that. For instance, if you run a group with an abyssal in their ranks, well, they exude evil and death energy. They will warp holy items in their presence. Holy water will evaporate. Crosses will bend and twist. Prayer breeds will explode. Right. And the only way they can kind of redeem themselves is by doing evil acts. Well, that's one option you could do, right? So it's just or lunars, right? They're all lunars are known about, and their gift. Well, your exalted may vary, but lunars know other lunars, and they have a strict system of trying to get creation to their version of it. So if your lunar in your circle is doing things that the rest of your pack doesn't want you to do, that could cause problems. So, for instance, if your lunar is trying to work with the rest of your circle to save a city, a port city that is actually a major problem for some of the sea people nearby because it's polluting the waters, right? And one of the more elder lunars is the caretaker of these people, and he says, "Hey, young lunar, go into that city and kill all the industrialists as an example and put their heads on the front doors, right? Kill all their firstborn too as an example." And if your lunar goes, "No, they're actually nice people. I had lunch with them the other day." Well, that's going to cause some problems later down the line, right? That elder lunar might go, "Well, then you don't get my support in a big battle," or guess what? It's wartime, right? And then you have a huge host of tentacles and fish people coming at you. So that's just one of the things you may need to consider when you're doing your story. But then again, as I always say, right, if you don't care about it, if you don't want to have to worry about it, throw it out. Fine. Play Exalted your way. Play the game your way.
That is good advice, no matter the system.
Yeah.
Anything or anyone you would like to shout out as we end this video?
As always, Last Chance Cat Ranch, wonderful charity, near and dear to my heart. Here, I can always reach over and grab a cat. This is Alder. He's actually a rescue from the Last Chance Cat Ranch. I raised him since he was a kitten. He's my big wobbly boy, very friendly. But it's thanks to their efforts that kitties like him can get a home and off the streets, or if they are feral and we can't rescue them at the point, then at least they can survive, right, instead of suffering so much. That's our mission. We want to be the place where the last chance for cats. We don't want to kill them. We want to get them into loving homes where they're appreciated and cared for. So, yeah.
Just like last week, the link for that will be in the description. I hope you all enjoyed the video and made it to the end, and thank you for doing this with me again, Mike.
Absolutely, buddy. Anytime, just let me know, and I'll be here to ramble on. I appreciate your time, effort, and energy in all this, and you keep being awesome.